Welcome to the ParentLife Podcast, a weekly resource for parents trying to raise children from a godly Christian perspective. Each week we're going to post a 10 to 12 minute video. This is our second episode. We're a ministry of Fruit Cove Baptist Church. This week our guest is Pastor Tim Maynard. He's the lead pastor here at Fruit Cove Baptist Church. We affectionately refer to him as PT. PT, thank you so much for being here today.
Pleased to be with you today. Thank you, Jason.
So next Monday is Martin Luther King Day. And part of the conversation that we've been having as a culture for the last year and really, century or more is racial reconciliation. And as part of our church, it's been a heartbeat to become a multi-ethnic church so that we can reach more people in our community for the gospel of Jesus. And so I wanted you to come and respond to that and more or less answer some questions for a parent how they can address this topic to their child of racial reconciliation.
All right, excellent. Yeah, a few years ago, I just really had this emphasis. I'm reluctant to say vision. I don't want to use those kind of words around it, but it was just an impression in my heart that God wanted us to be a church that worshiped with 30 different nationalities. And I'm seeing more and more people coming from different parts of the world, different countries, and that is just an amazing thing. So yeah, I'd really love to see that become a reality in the near future, but we'll see how that goes as we're fighting through the COVID issues and everything else. The issue of race is much bigger than just the issue of how do white people and people that are not white interact, not just black people, but everyone. How do we interact with each other? And it goes back to how we understand how we got here. And for that, and again, understanding that we're talking to Christian parents today, you have to come at this conversation with your child, no matter where they are in their development, from a Christian worldview. And the foundation of a Christian worldview is that God created us. Right. And I think that very few Christians would argue with that. I think we all understand, we embrace it, whether we understand it completely or not. But beginning at that point, we need to understand that races are not, the Bible tells, in fact, in the book of Acts, the Apostle Paul tells us that as he's addressing the people on Mars Hill and sharing the gospel with them, one of the foundational points that he makes is that God made every person from one man. Okay, we understand we had Adam, we had Eve, then we had everybody else that got here somehow. We're not all sure how that happened, but the reality is we trace ourselves back to one person. Races are not, God did not create a black Adam and a white Adam. There was not that kind of thing at the beginning. It was one person. So there's really just one race. Right. We're all from one race, and that's one foundational thing that we need to kind of hang on to as we think about this. Now, going a little more internally to the cultural issues that come out of that, that's where we hit problems and run into issues of tension and conflict. There's a lot of misunderstanding in this. There's a whole lot of accusations, some that are warranted, some that are not. I know that Southern Baptists as a religious denomination have struggled for many years with our image as being racist and being, not compassionate toward, not understanding of, not sympathetic toward people who are not white. And I've been deeply on the internal mechanism of the Southern Baptist Convention, and I simply don't see that to be the case. I see that we have made some tremendous strides, especially in the past, decade or two, toward trying to say that's not who we are. That is not what we are, that's not what we're trying to portray ourselves to be to the culture. Now there is a segmentation, there is a difference of cultural approaches to church, and in fact we used to worship together. We would have services together with an African American church in our community, and in fact I have had some conversations with that pastor with some other people in their church, and one of the times they were here we had a great service together. We were all together. Their choir came. It was a wonderful evening of worship, and I was talking to one of the older deacons, and I said, let me ask you a question. I said, would you ever consider coming to a church like Fruit Cove? And he said, no. And I said, why not? He said, I don't like your music. And I said, okay, that's a good reason. I mean, that's why we sometimes don't go to any, I don't like the way this is done. I don't like that particular procedure. So it's not that we're trying to say we're not welcoming to you. But there are cultural understandings that are in play
Preferences.
that certainly, produce themselves in our worship and how we present ourselves that way. So we have to kind of wrestle with that piece of it too. It's not just, hey, you're the wrong color, so I don't want you here.
Right.
It's not that. And in fact, the reality is there are, white people who could go into many black churches and they would say, you just don't fit here. I've talked to people who have done that, where they just feel like, okay, this is not where I belong. Mm-hmm. And it's not that church is trying to say, we don't want you. Right. It's just that we're different and we're going at this in a different way. We're approaching this in a different way. A few weeks ago, or a while back, I guess months ago now, when some of the things started flaring up with Black Lives Matters and all the issues that were rolling out at that time. And I used a simple illustration. I want to use it again because I want the parents to remember this. This is a really easy thing to do if you're having this conversation with your children. It goes back in my understanding, my belief, is that we simply don't understand each other. And part of that is we simply have not taken the time to try to understand each other. And I like to challenge Christian people, and this is a hard thing. Have you ever had a family from a different racial background come to your home for a dinner? Have you ever had coffee or dessert just to sit and say, tell us about your world, tell us about your life, how are things going, and just becoming friends? Well, and some people say, oh yeah, we do that. Many people would say, never happened.
Yeah. We tend to naturally segregate ourselves
based
on preferences.
Well, and that's a sociological principle of homogeneity. We draw toward the people that are like us. We're comfortable with people like us, and that's unfortunate because that does become part of the foundation of a racial barrier that happens. But what I tried to tell folks a while back is this: it's as simple as this water bottle. I can set this water bottle on the table right here, and there's something you could read on that side of the water bottle, and I cannot see it from this side. I'm absolutely black, do not know. Now, I saw the bottle before I put it there, so I know it says spring water, but I can't see that it says spring water from my side of the bottle. I would have to get up and walk around to the other side of the table and go, oh, it's spring water. There are things on the back of the bottle that you can't see. You can't tell me where this was bottled. You can't tell me which company bottled. Well, you probably can, there are labels on there. But there are things about that contents of that water that you wouldn't know unless you got up and walked around on this side of the table to look at it. Right. And I think that the beginning of racial healing, and this is where your family unit can actually begin to move toward this, is saying, how do we just take one small step forward toward understanding somebody who's coming from a different culture or a different racial background? How do we walk around to the other side of the bottle, so to speak, and say, let me see life from your side. Let me see what you're seeing. Let me understand what you're understanding. Because we're both looking at the same bottle of water. We're just seeing it from different perspectives.
Different perspectives. Yeah. And I like that it's so simple for a student or a child to think through that with their parents, because there's not a lot of complication to that. It is simply be friends with someone, with anyone, despite what their color or ethnicity may be. Yeah. Be their friend, get to know them, try to understand their perspective, and then befriend them in that perspective.
Absolutely.
And then from there, a lot can happen. And in the same time, as you're getting to know them, they're getting to know you.
Right. And I think, again, what's essential is that parents come at this with a Christian worldview in place, with an understanding that this is what the Bible teaches, guys. And if you don't have that, you're going to run into a lot of other problems too, because that's where all the gendering issues, everything else comes out of a misunderstanding. If God made us the way we are, there's nothing wrong with the way He made it. The Bible ends, and here's the other thing that we sometimes forget. The Bible ends with this incredible picture of worship in heaven happening with every tongue, every tribe, every race, in other words, people think, when we go to heaven, we're going to somehow become these translucent, transparent beings that have no substance. But the reality is, the Bible teaches you will have a body. It'll be a glorified body. Right. It'll be a fixed body. It'll be a disease-proof body. It'll be a death-proof body. Yeah. But it will also have a racial distinctive about it, the same one you had here on earth.
That's right.
God doesn't somehow mystically change us. Well, no, He doesn't just have one color of person in heaven.
Right.
God loves the multiplicity and the dynamic of the differences, and that's going to exist into eternity. So my suggestion is we better figure out how to deal with it now,
Right.
and how to love on each other now. And I think the church has an incredible opportunity to lead the way in that. And you as a Christian parent have an incredible opportunity, even on a day like Martin Luther King Day, to sit down with your children and say, let's talk about this for a minute. This is a big deal because it's affecting, again, a lot of stuff in our culture right now. And how can we as a family make a difference in, maybe there's somebody in your neighborhood, you say, let's reach out and let's just bring some cookies over. Just do something to say, hey, we just want to say hi and get to know you, and love to have you come over sometime, play some games. Let's just get to know some folks. But help your children be comfortable sitting with somebody who is not like them, and yet that's okay.
Right, and that's something that, if the Lord celebrates it in heaven,
yes,
where all sin has been removed, but yet ethnicity, language, and color has not been removed.
Exactly right.
That's something that we can celebrate as well, that this is something that God has ordained.
And that's why that goes back into my first comment, which is I would love to see all those nationalities here. I would love to see all those, I think that the more complex that our area is becoming and the more racially distinctive that our area is becoming, we have the possibility of seeing a church that can embrace that and understand that.
And Lord willing, we will.
And I pray we will one day.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for our second episode of the Parent Life podcast. The video version is on YouTube. We've got Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. If you'd like to take this, share this on social media with your friends. Next week, PT is actually going to be back with us. We're going to be talking about the presidential inauguration, and not so much about the inauguration itself, but how do we interact with our leaders and how can we pray for them in a God-honoring way. If you have any more questions about Fruit Cove Baptist Church, please reach out to ParentLife at fruitcove.com, or you can go to our website, fruitcove.com. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.